Welcome to Impact News. Folks, let's begin like this. Folks, we cannot have any more mean, nasty people running anything in this country. Government, corporate, none of it, all right? We don't need to elect. We don't need to have in any type of leadership capacity any more of these mean, nasty, hateful, insecure people. It turns out it counts, and it counts a lot, folks, as you can see. We have to have people running things and serving in government who are deep thinkers. They have to be able to see the big picture. They can't be clouded by negative emotions about race, gender, religion, ethnicity, sexual orientation, and so on. They have to be committed, inclusive, innovative, and creative in their thinking in order to save this planet and create a better world for everyone. There's a new concept, all right? All right, we must end up with a better world, a more sustainable world. So the Ron Desantises of the world, the Greg Abbotts, the Ted Cruzes, the Marjorie Taylor Greens, the Lauren Boeberts, the Oath Keepers, and all the likes of these horrible folks that have been out here just messing things up. They cannot serve us. They don't have the capacity to think deeply enough. They're too insecure, and their thinking is simply too narrow. Their day is done. Okay, well, this is very serious what we're facing from a climate standpoint, as well as all of the other social issues that have to be tackled. Everybody has to be on board with this. There's simply no question about it, and that means you must vote. I don't care what happens, you must vote. Take the day off of work, call in sick, do whatever you got to do. You have to vote, all right? Everybody. And you probably have to stand in line in early voting or on election day, because we now know that they have so monkeyed with the mail that the mail-in vote should only be used if it is the only thing that you can do. Maybe you're disabled or shut in or you're sick, whatever it is. But other than that, folks, you got to actually stand in line in early voting or on election day. You also have to make sure your vote is counted. You also have to encourage others to vote and help them get to the polls if needed. And you have to run for office. You have to run for office, even if it is the smallest office in your town. Maybe it's the office for the dog catcher. It doesn't matter. Get started somewhere, run for office, and begin to help shape government into something that is good for everyone. New concept. So please, we're counting on you. Get out there and vote in early voting. Get out there and vote on election day and make sure your vote counts. And more importantly, well, equally important, I should say, is you must run for office. I'm Carol Angela Davis. Stay with me for the news. Here are your headlines for the week. Get your vote plan. They're doing everything they can to keep us from voting and to keep our vote from counting. Plus, the shrinking number of Black prime time news anchors. Here we go again. Also, we got a new honor for Harriet Tubman. We also have a criminal investigation into Florida Governor Ron Desantis and his antics. Plus, today we've got news of these white nationalist domestic terrorists, most insecure people on the planet. I'll tell you about that. Then, just how ignorant is Florida Governor Ron DeSantis? All right, we'll tell you about that. Plus, one island nation calls for a global nonproliferation treaty to save this planet. Plus, Barbados and that nation's work to save the ocean. And then finally today, food security grows in the Caribbean. Stay with me. Looking at the vote. Imagine going to vote and finding out that your name isn't on the voting rolls. Now get this, you haven't moved. Your rights haven't been revoked because of a felony conviction. Nothing about your voting eligibility has changed. Nothing about your voting eligibility has changed, and yet you're denied the right to vote outright and offered a provisional ballot, which we all know doesn't always get counted in time. All right? According to the Brennan Center for Justice, between 2014 and 2016, you should know that states removed almost 16 million voters from the polls. Folks, that's a 33% increase from the period between 2006 and 2008. The voters most likely to be removed, you guessed it, people of color and persons living in poverty and young voters. They're just throwing them off the rolls. Check out Memphis, Tennessee, okay, where most blacks who live in Tennessee live in Shelby County, which is where Memphis, Tennessee is located. That's the county seat of Memphis. 100,000 voters were removed from the polls in 2021. You betcha, folks. Meanwhile, just 3,400 people have been restored to the voter rolls, all right, at a time of rising inflation housing costs, and other challenges, we must, folks, we must have people elected who represent our values, not who represent the values of the 5 or 6 people who figured out how to cheat and control the polls. Get yourself to the polls. You probably have to stand in line. More likely than not, you're not going to be able to vote by mail because, of course, they've cheated so much on that until you just don't feel secure about it. So if you don't have to vote by mail, stand in line in early voting or on election day. I don't care how long it takes. All right, let's move on. Why is the number of black primetime cable news anchors shrinking? Let's talk CNN, folks. Now Don Lemon is gone from primetime. Why? Don Lemon, folks, he wasn't scared, okay? CNN has a new person in charge, and it seems that there is now a shrinking number of black news anchors, not just at CNN, but everywhere. Everywhere, folks. All right, the primetime slot is the most coveted slot on television news, so why aren't we in it? All right? The new CEO of CNN is Jeffrey Licht. He has already ordered CNN on-air talent to stop using the phrase "the big lie" to talk about Trump's big lies, okay? That's, boy, I'll tell you. Don't use the big lie to describe former President Donald Trump's efforts to undermine democracy. That's a new one. I guess just what are we supposed to say? It's the truth or act like it's the truth? It's really bad. What else are you going to call a lie that threatens to upend democracy? Licht is also pushing for CNN to have more conservative guests, like they're not everywhere. All right, Lemon's move to the morning leaves just MSNBC's Joy Ann Reid. She is the only person now as the lone black primetime cable news anchor. So we better watch her back, okay? Because we know what's going on. Let's move on. A bronze statue that's honoring Harriet Tubman. It was created by artist Wesley Wofford. It's been installed in Maryland, folks. It's 13 feet tall. It's named the Beacon of Hope. Yes, and you can see it in Cambridge, Maryland. It's commemorating Tubman's bicentennial birth year. Harriet Tubman was born into slavery on the eastern shore of Maryland in Dorchester County in 1822. She returned to the state several times to rescue her family and countless others. The spot where the statue stands is near where Tubman rescued her niece, Kessa Bowley. Where would we be without Harriet Tubman and heroes like her? Then a criminal investigation now in Texas into whether dozens of asylum seekers were illegally flown from the state to Martha's Vineyard. It turns out the plane used to transport the asylum seekers belonged to a company called Vertol Systems, and it has connections to a Florida official in charge of Florida's current immigration policy. These people there's no shame in their game, folks. Vertol Systems, just so you know, it is based in Oregon. Right now, it's being reported that the company got a $12 million contract, folks, and it's already received more than $1 million from Florida to fly the asylum seekers out of Texas, let's just be clear, and to Massachusetts. Many of the asylum seekers were given pamphlets. Those pamphlets advertise promised benefits that are only available for refugees. Asylum seekers are asylum seekers. That's the category they fall into. They are not refugees, so the benefits they couldn't even get the benefits. It was all a big lie. I can't say that on CNN. It was all a big lie, and in the end, they used humans, people, mothers, fathers, children. They used them to make a political statement. Ron Desantis has to go. He cannot ever be a president of this country. He will tear this country up worse than Trump, because Ron DeSantis actually is intelligent. Trump isn't. The problem with Ron DeSantis is he's insecure. It doesn't have any ethics, it seems to me. All right, now here we go again with these white nationalists who are also domestic terrorists. All right. From Alabama, where police are investigating a racist Facebook post threatening to kill every Negro at the Lee County Fair. We're talking Opelika, Alabama. That's where it happened. That's where police say the post reads that someone and his friends, quote, are coming to Opelika, Alabama Fair to kill every Negro that we lay eye contact on, so be prepared, white power, unquote. Trust me, we're prepared for ignorance. We are prepared. Apparently, the user's profile included the Confederate flag. Why not? All the ignorance, all the hate, it always includes the Confederate flag. The most insecure people on the planet. That's who they are. All right, let's move on. Florida Governor Ron Desantis is just in the news for his silliness. All right, he went to Yale University. Imagine that. He went to Yale University, but he's so insecure, so ignorant, and so filled with hate. Now he's arguing it was the American Revolution, folks, that caused people to question slavery. Wow, thankfully for the American Revolution, somebody questioned slavery. No, Ronnie dear. Okay. Trust me, the slaves questioned slavery from the moment they were stolen from their country and arrived here to build this country that you think your ancestors built. All right. You are truly standing on third. Think you hit a triple. Dude, you didn't. All right. So who is bankrolling someone this ignorant and this insecure? Billionaires, of course. That's right, folks. Some of the wealthiest private donors in the United States are injecting cash into Florida Governor Ron Desantis' coffers. According to an analysis published in the Herald Tribune, you should know that 42 individuals with net worths of 10 plus digits have invested cash into DeSantis, who champions extreme right-wing policies. The Koch family, you know them. Okay, they're the ones who got everybody locked up in prison. The Koch family, Ken Griffin, public supermarket heiress and reported financier of the January 6th Capitol insurrection, Julie Jenkins Francelli. Also, former President Donald Trump's Secretary of Education and Amway heiress, that would be Betsy DeVos. Also, ex-San Francisco 49ers owner and Trump-pardoned Louisiana gambling bribe recipient Edward DeBartolo Jr. Those are the people that are giving Florida Governor Ron DeSantis money. It's just, that's the only people, it's so pathetic. We have to rein in the money in America. We have to rein it in and make sure everybody gets a fair shot. All right, looking at the climate, the nation of Vanuatu is calling for a global nonproliferation treaty to save the planet. The president there wants to phase out fossil fuels. Vanuatu is a Pacific Island nation, in case you don't know where it is. The president wants the treaty to phase down coal, oil, and gas production in line with 1.5 degrees centigrade and enable a global just transition for every worker, every community, and every nation with fossil fuel dependence. Makes sense. All right, he wants to include the crime of ecocide in the treaty, which is acting with the knowledge of severe and widespread or long-term damage to the planet. Vanuatu is rated by the UN as one of the most at-risk countries for natural disasters. The treaty, you should know, is supported by the Vatican. It is also supported by the World Health Organization, and so far you should also know that 65 countries have signed on to the treaty, so that's good news. Let's turn to Barbados, where Barbados is refinancing part of its debt to help save the ocean. It's a very unusual deal. Government officials agreeing to a $150 million debt conservation with the Nature Conservancy and the Inter-American Development Bank. It's the third such agreement on the planet. The move frees up about $50 million that Barbados has pledged to use to protect 30% of the waters surrounding the island. Now, we should tell you that Barbados is an island nation of about 300,000 people. It has the fourth largest marine space in the Caribbean. All right, this is no joke here. It has struggled with overfishing, pollution, and excessive coastal construction. You should also know that a similar deal was done with the Seychelles. It allowed the Seychelles to set aside $430,000 a year, folks, for marine conservation, protecting an area twice the size of Great Britain as of 2020. So the people are out here trying to make it happen. And then finally today, the number of people estimated to be facing moderate to severe levels of food insecurity in the English-speaking Caribbean has risen by 46%, folks. 46%, that's just in the last 6 months. Yes, nearly 4.1 million people, or 57% of the population, now face food insecurity. That is the word from the Caribbean Community, or CARICOM, and the United Nations World Food Program. The problem is rising cost of food and other commodities as the ripple effect of the Ukraine conflict and ripples through the economy, and also a slow recovery from COVID-19 is felt throughout Latin America and the Caribbean. Those are your stories. I'm Carol Angela Davis. Thanks for joining me. Stay with me. I'll be back with Ask Dr. K in the International Report, the Slay Word and Missing. Stay with me. Carol Angela Davis here with your Slay Word of the Week so you can level up your vocab. The word this week is congruous, C-O-N-G-R-U-O-U-S, congruous. It is an adjective, which means it modifies or describes a noun. Its origin is from the Latin in the 16th century, and the definition is in agreement or harmony. All right, let's use congruous in a sentence. All right. The noise from the hotel bar was congruous with its reputation as an all-night party spot. Here's another sentence. To restore this country to a congruous one, Donald Trump, in my opinion, needs to be imprisoned. That's right, folks. Congruous. That's your slay word of the week. It means in agreement or harmony. Use it all week and level up your vocab. I'm Carol Angela Davis.
Anyone who thinks that slavery ended in the 1860s with the signing of the Emancipation Proclamation are grievously wrong.
If we caught a bird, we ate through the feathers and ate the bird. We didn't have nothing to cook on. We didn't have no stove. You know who you are and who we are.
We're still on that big plantation.
She was bonded to them until they died. She was their slave.
They said, well, we're going to be killed tonight. Could that same white dude keep terrorists there? Or Russian spies? Or the KGB? Then the government wouldn't know it? No. They thought I was beat so bad that I couldn't do nothing, but I did.
Where are you? We're out there looking for you, and with the community's help, we will find you. Lashaya Stein was 16 years old when she disappeared from Aurora, Colorado in 2016. There is surveillance video of Lashaya walking in the area of East Montview Boulevard and North Peoria Street in Aurora. Lashaya was seen during the early hours of July 15, 2016. She was wearing a black V-neck shirt, black stone-washed jeans, and a silver watch on her left arm. She also has a round scar on her chest. There is a $15,000 reward in Lashaya's case. Call Crime Stoppers with any information to help us find Lashaya Stein. Where are you? We are working to find you, and with the community's help, we will. We're back with your international report with Dr. Inyang Ebong-Harstrom. As you know, she has traveled the world and she takes the temperature of the news around the world so you don't have to. Thank you for joining us, Edie.
Thank you, Carol. Today we're going to talk about Hurricane Ian and how nasty it has gotten and how quickly it's gotten so nasty because it's turbocharged by warm waters. Hurricane Ian is gaining monstrous strength as it moves over oceans, partly heated up by climate change, just like the 30 other Atlantic tropical storms since 2017 that become more powerful as the days go by. And the scientists are warning us because the water is getting so much warmer. So for example, in the Caribbean, the waters were 1.8 degrees Fahrenheit. So they were so much warmer that they turbocharged the hurricane and it got more violent. As you've seen, it has landed in Florida and it became 67% stronger in 22 hours before it touched landfall in Florida. And it has surged, and we've seen on the news today, the water surges are terrible and affecting property, livelihoods, and people. And they're saying that several studies are showing that while it isn't climate change that creates the Hurricane Ians and the Hurricane Fionas, it's the warming of the world that will increase the pressure and the intensity of the storms. And so each hurricane season, we will see bigger hurricanes, bigger flooding, bigger everything. And if we do not tackle this climate change, tackle the warming of the world, we are going to have more storms and more powerful storms as time goes on. Thank you.
It's really scary, and I'll tell you something. The other thing we also need is very smart leadership in every country all over the world, because we need leadership that's going to help us solve this problem. They have to work together. We need people who are standing strong on solidarity and helping everyone, not just some people. Thank you so much, Dr. Inyang Ebong-Harstrom. You know, she takes the temperature of the world news all around the world for you every week. Thank you so much, Edie.
Thank you, Carol.
I'm just sick and tired of us not spending time together lately.
I know, baby. I know. I'm sorry I've been spending time with you. I've just been working on this big deal. It's gonna bring a lot more money to the household for it.
What you doing here, boss?
Yeah, just checking to see if you still got it.
You take this work. Your partner. I don't want it back.
I've seen the movies, man. I know how this goes.
You see the movie, huh? What you see? Goodfellas, New Jack City.
Everything I do is for you. Like, I just need a little bit more time, man. Fine bullshit. Like I said, he's gonna call any second.
Why don't you take a look at this video? Guess what? It's starring you.
Welcome. Here we are closing out the show, obviously with your health in mind, because let's face it, if you got your health, you got everything. That's why Dr. K is talking to you every week about the things you have to consider if you want to live a long and healthy life. Welcome, Dr. K.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me. You know, I'm spending much longer than a month on breast cancer and specifically issues that relate to women of the diaspora. Last week, we talked about chronic illness, obesity, diabetes, cholesterol, and other inflammatory conditions. Today, I would like to talk about preservatives that are found in many of the products that Black women use, that are marketed to Black women. And when a Black African-American women's breast cancer cells are tested, for some reason, the presence of parabens causes the cells to grow and divide, so basically metastasize at a much higher rate than it does cells that come from Caucasians. But naturally, Black cell lines are not tested in breast cancer research like white cell lines are. But when they're tested, parabens are the problem. Parabens are used in a lot of hair products, a lot of cosmetics, because they prevent the growth of bacteria, funguses, and other contagious infected things to come into the cosmetics. So they're in there. The problem is they're in, first of all, our perms. Everybody my age and probably into their 40s have been getting perms maybe their whole life. So we may have had a much longer exposure to parabens than other cultures. Second of all, they are found in all kinds of cosmetic shampoos and hair care products. So what are we looking for? We're looking for methylparabens, isoparabens, butylparabens, polyparabens, and isobutylparabens. Parabens. These are the chemicals that are very, very highly associated with the spread of breast cancer in Black women. If you find things that have them, don't buy them. I believe that Carol's daughter is paraben free, possibly Cantu, possibly Nexus, or at least some products in that line. I also know that Juicy, 100% Pure, and Ilia are makeup brands that are paraben free. If you take the parabens out of the product and they put in formaldehyde, that's also very bad, because formaldehyde is what the parabens replaced. And there's all kinds of recommendations online about how long to keep different things, but you can't keep them for years or months even.
Yeah.
So
so interesting to
there's
hear
so many issues with African American women and this epidemic basically of breast cancer, especially in our young people. We're going to explore these topics every week.
Absolutely.
So thank you so much for allowing me to bring you this information on this.
Absolutely. We so appreciate your information, and we thank you for tuning in. So from all of us here at Impact News, have a great week. We'll see you next week with a whole much more great information so you can live a healthy, prosperous life. Thank you, Dr. K.
Thanks for having me.